In this video, I have the fortune of sharing the great wisdom of community builder Robbie Sko. Now, look, you're not just going to love Robbie because he goes hard as Robbie also runs Performers Pathway. He's a recent winner of the School Games Business Building Competition, and his incredible story from chemical engineering to throwing a music festival featuring skydivers will leave you with a ton of tactical insights. And stay tuned to the end, where Robbie will give us tremendous perspective on how to keep the human elements alive in your art and in building your business. The Ultimate World Tour. Wait, so is that Robbie Sko, or is that with the Kicks? Like, where does that kind of fit into
Yeah, so that's Robbie
your
Sko.
efforts?
Yeah, that's Robbie Sko. So yeah, like, currently
Love
playing
that.
like with the Kicks, yes, and also a bunch of other different bands. I played this band, Castellane last weekend, bunch of different gig for hire type stuff. But yeah, ultimately down the line is like that transition from just gun for hire, saying yes to playing with other people to kind of like making your own show.
Absolutely beautiful. So my history really comes from a lot of tech background. I spent almost the past decade working with Monday.com, building communities with them. And it was a great pleasure. But, you mentioned phase one, phase two, phase three. So many people don't take the time to actually like think through how to make that happen and what they even want to get out of it. So what would you say you're doing right now to make phase two work to get to phase three? Like, what are the steps that you see? Maybe it's the content engine piece, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about kind of how you're making that vision a reality.
Right. So currently now I am leaning into the content piece to try to make that work because I have even tried doing I put together a pretty cool original show in my hometown and I had a bunch of different musicians involved. It was a pretty ambitious DJing and live musician project where it was me DJing
Oh,
and
that's so
and
cool.
playing keys. We had a live drummer, live bassist, live guitarist, three different singers swapping in and out, a rapper, and at one point, I like grabbed a drum during like a drum and bass section and just kind of started ripping on this like mobile drum. And there's also supposed to be some dancers there. They bailed last minute, but that's how it is.
Yeah.
It was really cool, but it was kind of like a flash in the pan. There it is, there it went, which made me want to make sure, yes, continuing to build original songs and remixes that will work in this, ultimate future live show. But also right now, just trying to really grind it out and see how can I make really interesting content for people to watch, but how can I also document this moment in like human and tech
Mm,
history by like also
yeah.
showcasing some of the AI that's happening. So like in this Finding Phase 2 series, we have like this AI companion that's kind of like, nice and like sarcastic and belittles every decision we make, which is beautiful. And then just like because it's like a nice little timepiece that kind of shows where we were at
Yeah.
in the evolution of making content and in the evolution of how these different tools help us in our day-to-day lives.
Just in terms of like your skill and expertise and watching all of your content that I've been able to see, I'm sure you didn't just wake up with all of these skills. Maybe there was like a moment that you can recall. I'd really love to hear, is there a story that can recall where you knew that music was going to be it? This is what you wanted to do. Like, I'd love to hear a little bit more about the journey of when you fell in love with the music business in particular and wanting to make this your life's passion.
One big moment in particular was it was funny enough, it was during like finals week as I was a like master student in chemical engineering and
Oh, wow.
yes, which so I have a degree in chemical engineering and worked in that field for a little bit, but one big game-changing moment was I was helping put together a music festival out in Arizona, and one of my favorite artists was playing. This guy Grizz, he's awesome, like Ableton Live
Hmm.
remixes with saxophone, like that nice combination of electronic music and funk. And he had this really cool VIP ticket where certain members were skydiving into the venue. We knew there was a skydive like this whole festival, but I don't know when they were going to skydive in. But they ended up skydiving like during his set, during like an incredible song he was playing, and it was just
Oh,
like a,
wow.
a peak life moment where I was like, wait, this man gets paid to provide people here with so much joy and provide the soundtrack to his fans skydiving in to the thing. So yeah, just being in that environment of like the the music festivals and seeing that, and I just wanted to make my life to not only just be a part of music festivals myself and like kind of performing at those, and but also kind of show the way for some other musicians that want to learn how to become a performer.
That's so cool. Wow. I mean, can you I can only imagine what that must be like. They skydived and you just have this awakening moment. That's so special.
It's fun.
Yeah, given the just how much passion drives music, I would be really curious to hear maybe there is like, a moment that like or something that moved you maybe recently. I'd love to hear about maybe like which artists or if there's a particular artist that has really moved you. And also on top of that, as a follow-up question, which Ren song specifically moved you the most?
First, yeah, so you mentioned Ren. I mean, Ren definitely is really cool. I've been reacting to some Ren videos on YouTube.
So special to see those reactions. It's so fun.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, that's very fun. So, yeah, I think it's special to talk about the big one. Like a lot of people kind of recommend that the first one you see is called High Ren, and I really like that because it talks about that, that kind of battle you have with yourself as far as like your negative self trying to like come in and kind of belittle every decision you make and go into. And that was really impactful because I'm not one that always jumps right to the lyrics because I'm like, I play guitar, bass, piano, and drums. So there's a lot of other things for me to think about
Mm,
in a mix when listening to a new artist. This one song, High Ren, where he really just kind of broke down, it was back and forth, just him and a guitar, like his good self and his like evil self kind of going back and forth. And me, and I'm sure many artists and many entrepreneurs, just people in general that have
yeah.
these negative voices, which I'm sure as all of us can relate to that and relate to that struggle, like what it takes to become a person that is able to kind of persevere and win in spite of your inner self critic really wanting you to just lay down and do nothing. So that was, yeah, that's pretty impactful. And then on the other side of things, I've been really enjoying going to this one really fun party in Brooklyn called Laylit, which is like a celebration of these like electronic artists combining like Arabic music. There's like Saudi Arabian
Oh,
DJs,
wow.
one's from like Morocco and Egypt. And I really love that mix of like world music and like world percussion plus like
Yeah.
dancers in this room with kind of like lasers and kind of back and forth dancing with like that Middle Eastern vibe. I think that's been really inspiring me lately.
That's amazing. How specifically would you say they inspire you? Do they actually influence the output of the music? Does it change direction and how you approach content? I'd love to hear a little bit more about kind of what those moments of absorbing that kind of content does to you as an artist.
Well, it's funny for the Ren one, I had even before I saw that video High Ren, I had
Hmm.
developed a character that I started using in my YouTube videos, which is like my evil self, where I have these like LED goggles that I put on and I put like a lower pitched voice and I'm just like really nasty. Just be like, here's why you suck at piano. Here's why you suck at jamming. Like you're terrible. You do this. Then I come back in as my
Oh, that's
regular
funny.
character. Like, oh, sorry about him. He's a jerk. But here's how you can just play like this and that. So I kind of have that fun dichotomy back and forth from the high Ren. It's like different ways of not just ignoring those negative voices and ignoring that self-doubt you have, but like how can you succeed in spite of it. So that's kind of one inspiration on the from the high Ren side. And then another one from like the Arabic house parties I've been going to is I bought a darbuka. I love that thing. I have it right over there. Maybe I'll
What is
maybe
a darbuka for
oh
the uninformed?
oh it's so great. It's like this drum. I'll just grab it and play a little bit of it. But I could. It's funny. I told some of my friends this. They laughed at me because I do a lot of things. I wear a lot of hats. I do a lot of this, a lot of that. But I could, like, if need be, I could just like eat, sleep, play darbuka. Like that would be an okay life for me. It's so fun. Like Robbie
You need
Darbuka
that on a
Sko.
shirt.
Robbie Darbuka Sko. Okay, I'll grab it. She was like,
Yeah, let's see it. Let's see it. Oh, look at that. Oh, it's not picking up, unfortunately.
oh yeah, that might be the audio settings in here. But if I talk a little bit, it might come through a little.
Yeah, it's coming through when you talk. From what I heard of it, it sounds very like it's an ongoing sound. It persists. All right. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, it has that. It has a little like tambourine inside of it too. Yeah, that thing's very fun. I intend to kind of use that with some different remixes because that's a big thing I want to do and help people do is just like combining electronic music with real instrument playing. So lots of different ways you can do that involving different percussion instruments, including playing keys, playing guitar, whatever it may be.
Yeah. I I remember the first time I saw High Run as well. I think it was like in December, or like it was around, Christmas time in the US when it came out. And I hadn't been that moved by music in a minute. And how he, like, just, it was just so different, but felt so familiar in how he presented the problems and talked through the stories. It actually reminded me of an artist called NF, I believe is his name. He's a rapper, but it gave me the same sort of vibes of, let me talk to you about this quest of life, and I'll use the medium of music to have that experience, which is
Cool.
so special. You mentioned your friends kind of like laughing about your ability to just kind of take things and run with it. There was an Instagram reel that you had posted recently where they were actually laughing a little bit with you about online courses and communities, and it became like probably the best community commercial I've ever seen. I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about that, and if you would, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if you would agree, I'd love to know, where does that hunger for knowledge come from, do you think?
Ooh, yeah, I'm a forever student. I love it. So it's one of my favorite things to continue learning, continue growing. Hence why, I pick up the darbuka, and hence why I'm trying to continue to grow in this music thing. Yeah, after a while, I would just have certain answers that people had, and then it's just been great blessing to be able to kind of help people out, leave little breadcrumbs along the way, and help
Mm,
people with different things. It maybe started at a younger age, but even kind of when I was in college, like going to the school for chemical engineering, I just had to
yeah.
develop that ability to to learn really really complex problems and just take them to a high level and just like push through that pain and lack of understanding. Because yeah, one way I like to describe it to people is like I had one semester where the easiest class, calculus 3, which is like that 3D calculus, because everything else was even harder than that. It was like thermodynamics and physical chemistry too, and organic chemistry and
Crazier from there.
all that other stuff. Pushing past that and having those late nights in the library during college
Mm,
is just gave me that confidence to know that most things are figure outable. And so when I have these visions of different ideas I want to do, or even you know different students in the performer's pathway have different ideas on how they want to take their music career to the next level, even though some ideas may seem grandiose and unsolvable. It's like I have that kind of desire to help make things broken down into different ways, learn the techniques that need to be learned to take it to the next level. And yeah, I'm just happy to always continue to learn and evolve as like new technology emerges and new better techniques to get the thing done emerge.
That's, I think, one of the most valuable skills any entrepreneur or person can have is that ability to, as you said, push through the pain. That and speed to execution. I think, like, if you have those things, like, you'll be able to take it incredibly far and see lots of great success. Where do you think that ability came from? Because I'm sure you've seen it with musicians that you've worked with and other people in your life. So many people don't have that ability to see and understand that pushing through the pain is where the answers that you seek are. What gave you the ability to see that and unlock it, do you think?
It could have been a number like moments throughout the life, but one moment that comes to particular funny enough is I was lucky enough to go to a high school that had a really competitive and great drum line, and their staff really
Hmm.
pushed us like beyond belief, and they were really talented and they had this high standard of excellence and discipline. And I was as a freshman, I was just playing the cymbals, just like gonna going around. And then in sophomore year, I was still like 4'11", super short. And I started playing the snare drum. I could like barely hold it. When I was auditioning, it was just on the stand, like barely there. But yeah, it was awesome. Grateful to the Immaculata High School Spartan Marching Band. Shout out the drum line. Some of these guys that took us onto the like not necessarily sanctioned by the school, but like some separate sectionals. Like once I got to be a snare drummer, okay, we're gonna have this sectional here. Just come meet us in this town down the way. So I go there. It's my first time having the drum. My first time like having the harness, because even when I was auditioning, it was just on the stand. So I go, we're at the harness. We start warming up. We start doing these rolls. Just like going, and then we start like marching through the cornfields. We're just like playing all these things, like marching through, like going up these like mini hills, traversing through these places, like walking over like mini streams, and just like almost doing like this march all throughout the town while like playing and like practicing. And then it was my first time doing it, so I didn't know what else to expect. but I had, I was so short and the drum was like pretty big and far down that I had like black and blue and purple like thighs here from like the drum like smashing into my leg from like marching for
Oh,
so
no.
long. But I was just powering through. I was just, just pushing through the pain. I'm like, hey, we're trying to get better doing this thing. What am I gonna do? Complain and walk home? No, we're just gonna we're just gonna figure it out and do this. And yeah, they just continue to have that kind of great discipline of just, constantly practicing, meeting up, even meeting up outside of the normal hours and just pushing to kind of get better and better, being very organized with your music, taking into account any changes that happen throughout the week, changes throughout the show, being on top of that and doing it. And it was just a great way to just kind of only allow excellence to be the minimum standard. And
Mm.
thanks to the staff pushing us like that, we were rewarded with, almost every competition we went to was like, and the winner, best percussion was due back at high school. We go on to win regional championships, state championships, and even one of my years I was there, we won national championships. So that was a great experience.
That's so cool. Wow. What a special thing to be able to recall on and reflect upon. Given your experience and the fact that you're also working with musicians, which we could talk a little bit about your community and kind of what you're up to, where do you see a very common barrier for these musicians who are, and maybe you could even give a little bit of an introduction into your community as well, but I'd really be curious to hear about kind of the most common struggles that you see that maybe musicians aren't pushing through the pain, but they just need to be able to see or understand this mechanism or this transformation for them to help them go through this.
Yeah, so I host a community called the Performers Pathway. I help musicians get better gigs and get better footage from their gigs so they can kind of work towards building the brand further and further. And a lot of people struggle with overthinking. They overthink, oh, what
Mm.
video do I have to post? What message do I send to the contact? And they're overthinking their own releases too, right? Kind of waiting too long to get something out or not really pushing as hard as they need to for the release strategy. The number one thing that kind of holds them back is just getting stuck in their own head. So I try to help them push past that and get to that ability to kind of trust themselves, trust their work, and know that they can have not just a artist page, but also like a brand that people can rely on and know that, oh yeah, I can hire them, they can provide the right service, and also get them to push past just the first few people saying no and just have the confidence to continue to work towards getting their dream gigs.
Thinking through just how much overthinking happens, it's really pervasive across every industry. And, I'm sure you and I could both share some stories about how that's affected us. In preparation for this, I was listening to an interview, and I'll share it with you. I'll link it in the description as well of the video. But it was the founder of ConvertKit who was interviewing a musician who like passively has created thousands upon thousands of songs. And his whole theory about the music business in particular, which I would love to hear kind of your opinion on, was that it's a volume game and it's not a quality game. It's a quantity game. And through the art of going through this process, that's where you're going to be able to see the kind of goals that you want as a musician and make this a full-time living. I'd be really curious to hear, do you agree, disagree? How have you kind of seen that either be true or maybe not be true in your experience?
Yeah, that's one thing I'm really trying to solve for is how to make that quantity game sustainable. Because
Mm.
what's interesting is when you get to a certain point, it's not quantity or quality, it's quantity of quality. And that's a difficult
Right.
place to get there, but you can get there with certain things like templates, knowing when your chords match, knowing when the mixing of certain things. But yeah, it's definitely quantity and quality, which is easier said than done. I'm having a blast. I feel like I'm almost back in the lab at chemical engineering school trying to figure out how to actually be a daily upload person or how to actually be someone that can do that. Cause then I want to come back to the community and share all kinds of wins of how they can do it too. And really just use the quantity to really just wow people and make them wonder like how can they do all that? Like how can they do all that? Like, cause if you look at the studies of Prince, it's just absolutely insane. He has like this huge vault of like thousands of unreleased
Mm.
songs, and it is that quantity that brought him to get the quality. He could just when it's time for him to pull album, he's like, okay, I'll just chew this. Only releases like 10% of what is out there. So yeah, quantity is definitely a huge help.
What do you feel gives you the strength to hit publish?
I think it's my ability to know that I'm better than yesterday, right? Because sometimes
Mm.
we look
Yeah.
too high up the mountain at people that have achieved the accolades, people that have gotten the billion streams, gotten the millions of views, and just be like, oh, it's not as good as what they did. It's a helpful philosophy to just lean into the document, don't create, instead of having to say, here is my pinnacle magnum opus song or video or course module, right? Instead, just getting it out there in the faith that it's better than what I did yesterday, and also in the faith that it's still going to help someone, even if it's not as great as this grandiose. Even going back to the high end, like the negative voice coming into you to stab you in the
Yeah.
throat, saying, "Wait, you upload tomorrow. Go back to bed. Upload tomorrow." Instead, just having to be like, "Hey, you know what? It's going to help one person. Just get it out there."
It's so true. So true when it comes to the impact that you can make. And you mentioned the mountain. One of the things that I heard that has stuck with me ever since was that we always look at the top of the mountain so frequently, but we forget that in order to get there, you have to look down and put one foot in front of the other. And you have to get good at doing that over and over again. And before you know it, you'll be at the top, right? But it just takes time, it takes repetition, it takes iterations to be able to bring that to life. When it came to content, especially, so many people have seen a lot of value from YouTube. I'd love to know kind of like what sparked you creating a YouTube channel, and what does that do for your business? Like, why do you keep investing time in it? If it has an effect on the business at all, what does it do for you?
Oh yeah, that's an interesting link how I got to YouTube. So I found that when I was playing with a funk band at the time, like a funk hip hop band called Woke Robot, and we had like this
Love it.
10-piece band, horns, and I was playing synths and organ and piano and stuff, and we had like guitar, bass, piano, drums, rapper, and like full on horn section, saxophone, trumpet, bass. And we had one video that did really well. It was like this Wu-Tang Clan medley we did that Wu-Tang Clan reposted. And like, I remember RZA posted on his Facebook
Whoa,
page. He's like, oh, check these guys out. I was like, thanks, RZA. And so
beautiful.
that was a big band. It's a lot of mouths to feed. So like when we started playing like festivals around our neighborhood, they, instead of like just divvying up the money between all these people, it was like, oh yeah, they said, Robbie, why don't you just take the money from this gig and just buy us some helpful thing for the band. I was like, okay. And so then like I looked it up and then was brought to this YouTube video. It's like, oh yeah, best iPhone mic to get for recording videos. I was like, okay, so we'll get this. Like I bought this iPhone mic and I didn't think much about it. And then that was from this kind of YouTube channel called Think Media. And then slowly over time, the algorithm kept coming in and it's like, oh yeah, get this camera. Oh yeah, get this thing. Oh yeah, here's how YouTube could build your brand. Da, 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 da. And so for a mix of them and other people, and then also down the line, you see, some big acts crush it on YouTube, different bands that have like converted being able to get people to watch the YouTube videos into selling tickets and being able to tour the world from having a great YouTube following. And I think Kevin Hart, the comedian, had huge success from like being able to get big on YouTube, converting that into being okay, yeah, now we can kind of play different venues around the world from that. So
Mhm.
yeah, just from that one gig where I was like, oh yeah, instead of just giving everyone $20 or whatever, let's just get some cool device. So I got that iPhone mic, and then I've just been kind of really, really obsessed with the kind of growth and ways to get some nice camera angles. And right now, one thing I'm having a lot of fun with is the 360 camera and like different ways of incorporating shots like out in the wild and being able to come back in and kind of show what's happening while capturing the magic in unique ways. And it was a fun like realization of finally coming back to form of I had a video camera when I was younger and I lost it. And I was like, oh, sorry, mom
Ooh,
and dad, can we buy a new one? She's like, nah, dude, you lost it. That's it. And
out of
I
luck.
didn't buy one till like, many years later when I'm after I got the iPhone mic. I'm like, oh, okay, make YouTube videos. It all started with like the notion of just like recording my shows. And then it's evolved into how to make videos that can attract some ideal clients. So ideal clients for Performers Pathway will be people that know a little bit of music already and they're trying to get their first gigs. They're trying to like get on stage or they already have some gigs and they're trying to take it to the next level, not just do it only on the weekends, but also be able to make some nice living from their music.
Mm.
And yeah, I've got a number of students that have like reached out from seeing my YouTube videos. Yeah, it's been a good plus.
That's so awesome. I know so many people, myself included, right, struggle with valuing their knowledge that they have. I can only imagine how that affects the artists in that world. I'd love to know, did you struggle with that or did you not? And from that point of either struggling with it or not struggling with it, when did you know that you were like ready and primed to make a community? I'd love to hear the story where you said, this is it. This is the next piece of the Robbie Sko empire.
It was funny the first time I was thought about teaching piano lessons, I was like, "Oh man, I went to chemical engineering school. I'm not qualified to be teaching piano." But I could already play it at such a high level when like, someone asked me to teach piano lessons at the local lesson center. I'm like, all right, I'll try it. And ended up being great and the students loved me and I did really like that ability of like kind of teaching and sharing with people. And I do really love the idea of sharing an idea and letting multiple people be able to benefit from it, right? As opposed to just the one-on-one thing. So I was looking to build the community thing for a while. I started off on Go High Level, and it was a little clunky as a community, but I had some piano students in there, and like sending files back and forth was a bit of a mess. But then when I found School, I really liked School, and I thought it was a great way to kind of host everything. We're all right together. Your community, your classroom, your calendar, all right there, super neat. And the mobile app was easy to use, much friendlier than Go High Level. So I loved that. And then it started meeting some great, helpful characters. Levi Patton was a huge help and really pushed
Yeah,
me to
shout out.
start. Yeah, shout out Levi Patton. And he pushed me to really start Performers Pathway and really get it going. Because before then, YouTube gurus and business gurus will say, like, oh, listen, you play piano. They're so quick to just put you in a box. Like, you play piano, just teach piano. It's easy, easier to market, easier to advertise, blah, blah, blah. But Levi is a musician himself, in addition to being a great businessman. So he could see that I had the ability to kind of teach in other avenues as well. Like, so I could teach some of the content stuff. I play multiple instruments. So like I could be speaking to guitarists, speaking to pianists, speaking to the drummers, even producers and artists. So one gave me a big push and a big like stamp of approval to be able to start a community that has the doors kind of wider open as opposed to only helping piano players. Yeah, I love that. Love that push from him to kind of be able to start really helping people out in this community without getting caught in overthinking forever. It's just like put your foot on the gas, help people out, keep making sure they get wins.
I love that. When somebody comes into kind of your ecosystem and your world, what do you see as the quickest win that you are able to get them? Or what do you kind of prioritize for when somebody says, okay, I'm going to join, I'm going to be part of this, I'm going to learn from Robbie and the team? What do you try to get them to achieve first?
If they're advanced enough to play their instrument well or already have songs released, which many of them are, a first big win I want to get them is just really allow them to press the gas on releasing the content and releasing more songs more frequently because a lot of them get caught in overthinking for years
Mm.
with all let me just overthink this idea forever versus just go ahead and releasing the song or releasing the video because you never know what that one video is going to be, or you never know what that one song is going to be that really connects with someone else. I try to get them the ability to have that lever to be putting themselves more at bats. So I try to give them more opportunities to win and knock that ball down the hill so they start either releasing content more frequently or exporting more songs more frequently. That gives them some bigger first wins.
That's beautiful. I've been talking a lot about the game of the community business world. I find myself frequently talking about DTR, which is like the kind of the pieces of how the game is played, which is like you need distribution, right? To be able to have people know about the business and what you're doing. You need transformation. So you need to be able to get people results and have them be understanding what that looks like and sharing that with people to help them get that they can see that transformation too. And then there's retention. So how do you keep them engaged and on board? Thinking through that kind of model, how are you kind of thinking through the distribution side of things? Because I see so many people struggling with this aspect of it. And maybe there's a story or an example of like one of the first few people that joined the community that maybe you didn't know or wasn't a contact of yours. How do people go about and find you? How do you kind of take that distribution and turn that into a valued community member?
Because I perform in so many different groups, I definitely started out in my warm network and seeing who can I help out, who actually needs a hand with
Mm.
doing this, because there's certain things that may come naturally to me that maybe doesn't happen for others. So I even had some first people join that were actually in the past had been bandmates. And I just had
Oh,
been
wow.
someone that's kind of been only on like the organizational side or even on the forward thinking side to be ahead of them with as far as like how to take on larger set lists, how to learn a lot of material in a short amount of time. So I had different techniques that I could help them out with. So some of the first people are getting wins are people in my immediate network, which has been fun to kind of be working with people and kind of seeing their growth in the local community. So that's been great. Outside of that, the other main networks have been people within the school community, which is great. Happy to help people within the school community already accustomed to the
Oh,
platform and
cool.
ready to take action on there. YouTube and Instagram. And so within both of those, I try to like post some of the things I'm doing that are working, see who resonates with it, and then either I'll reach out to them or some happy to when people reach out to me and I kind of lend a hand to see how I can help them out.
That's awesome. Do you have any tools or softwares or things that enable that beyond school that you use to support the business?
I've initiated a little bit of go high level. I probably have to like tweak the funnel even more to make it more dialed. My favorite outlets are definitely YouTube and Instagram, and
Mm.
I've yet to fully set up the whole funnel and optimization to have that come more automatically.
It's never quite finished. There's always something to change and do in that regard.
Yeah.
Amazing. So thinking through the journey that people go on, you've had the community now for a few months. How long has the community been around?
Yeah, for a number of months. Started it maybe at the first big push in December.
And was there an event or something that made you go for that big push? I'd be curious to hear if maybe the school games was a target for you or if it was like a happenstance. I see the awesome little trophy that you got back there.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
it's a sight to behold. What kind of made that moment in time happen for you? Why was it then?
Yeah, the timing was really cool because I actually decided to switch because before I had the performance pathway, I was like teaching like more so just piano players. So I had like more of like a
Mhm.
high ticket coaching group on helping just piano players get to that next level and get more gigs specifically. And so we talk about, I pull the piano on screen on the calls and just talk about different techniques for playing the songs and things like that. Yeah, the big push to switch to performance pathway definitely came from Levi. And when I was chatting to him, and he had also some interest in the type of techniques I was chatting about because he plays in bands himself, and he was looking for some different guidance for ways to kind of keep a band unified, almost like a band accelerator type thing, like helping bands out or helping performers. And we landed on the name Performers Pathway. And that was around November or December. And shortly after we decided to make that community together, we found out that the school games was changing to have the quarterly and introduce the categories. And rumor had it one of the categories might be music. So
Oh,
that
cool.
that got us really hyped, and that definitely got me really amped to compete in the school games and really push to do my best in that quarterly challenge.
That's so awesome. So you obviously won, which was great to be able to see you there clapping alongside everybody during the pickleball presentation. I'd love to understand if there was maybe a story or an example of something that, throughout the journey, it doesn't have to be after the games, could have been before that, but was there something that you learned from another community builder that changed how you approach an aspect of your business?
Yeah, one of the community winners there, just he was so dialed in with his content strategy. It was pretty wild to see. I remember we were like hanging out at the lunch table and he was showing his spreadsheet of the different things, and like he had like heat maps for how like well they were doing, like different color coordinated which ideas were the best. And he had like a list about his different video editors, and he had 6 video editors. So that was a good kind of wake up to see how big the mountain can be. And that's just like a cool wake up call to realize, like, yeah, I mean, also like you think about the end credits of a movie is really cool to see and talk to community builders that have teams, or some of them had like some of their team members there in person versus other people that have, different editors, virtual assistants, things like that. Yeah, that was really cool to see in person and just talk about in person these people that do have teams, because usually you just think about solo entrepreneurs. So that was a cool kind of rethink.
Yeah, that's really crazy. What community was that, if you don't mind sharing?
Oh
I'd love
yeah,
to
that
see like examples of their content.
oh definitely check him out. That was Josh from the Cyber Range, and he also had a
Oh,
presentation during the school game. So check out his presentation too. But yeah, that was Josh from Cyber Range.
yeah, he's doing over 100 grand a month right now, right? He's insane.
Yeah,
That's that's really, really special to see. His story was also so crazy, right? Like
right.
film it out of his car and wow, absolutely nuts. Speaking of getting together in person and doing all these things, do you see in person playing a role in what you're trying to build, given the nature of music? Or do you see this really maintaining like the performance pathway is always going to be kind of an online focused thing? I'd be curious how you think about that, if it plays a role in your business or not, kind of incorporating IRL stuff.
Oh yeah, I had one IRL meetup already. It was great. I
Whoa,
remember
tell me about it.
it was so cool. I had a number of different members come to, yeah, we all went out together, went out to this place in the East Village. We're hanging out, chatting for a bit, food and drinks. And then we went to New Blue. There was an event called Producer Mondays, which is an all improv music event hosted by
Oh, wow.
Ray Angry. He plays keyboards in The Roots, and a lot of other like great heavy hitters, like touring artists, are like in the main house band. So yeah, we had like IRL meetup that went to that event and saw these like incredible musicians kind of play, different people like improvise. And I was out in like in New York City. So definitely plan to do more IRL events.
Yeah, I can't wait to get back out to New York. I used to live there for 5 years when I was working at Monday, and it was a pretty awesome place. And talk to me a little bit about how you think about the performance aspects of musical improv versus, studio sound, put out tracks. As somebody who's completely ignorant of that process, I'm just really curious. How do you kind of think about prioritizing time spent between those things? Because you mentioned like, oh, this is something that would be particularly interesting. And looking at your Instagram and your content, like you're obviously a wonderful improvisation artist. So how do you kind of think about those two dynamics of performance? Or is it just, that when the moment calls, we're in the studio, when the moment calls, we improvise when we're performing? Is there a relationship between that? And how do you think about it?
I prefer improvisation. I like every show to be different, and every solo to be different. And there's some aspects of that a lot of people will disagree on, maybe in the classical world, in the musical theater world, and then also in certain tribute bands that want to stay super direct and really close
Yeah.
to the mark. Like, for example, I play in this one ABBA tribute band sometimes, and so they'll be really nitpicky, like that's not the exact sound. That's not the exact. I'm like, it's a triangle wave and organ comp. It's not the exact sound. And like they want everything to be dialed like exactly the same thing. And
Right.
that always brings me back to this like Seth Godin interview, or I think maybe it's in one of Seth
Mm.
Godin's books, where he talks about this factory in China where they reproduce the Mona Lisa, and he's trying to decide like, is this art? Like, is this art when you like just reproduce the Mona Lisa, or is that just just a service, just like a commodity? So I really try to lean on the more artistic side, where things are different from show to show and things are improvised. Just like you know this conversation, though there's some guidelines, is like completely improvised. And that's just the way most of life, even oftentimes when you're driving, sometimes, yeah, you follow GPS, but like you have to improvise certain ways to go around. I think the best way to live your life is improvise. You can have different guidelines, but yeah, it's more often a way to go about it. And I'm sure in addition to the genres I mentioned, also maybe certain like metal shredding guitarists will want to like nail this one solo exactly like
Mm.
here in this moment and kind of play it the same way every night. But yeah, improvisation is like a big part for me, which is something I kind of strive to like allow for as the project gets bigger, like even with lights.
Right.
Because some people, as artists get bigger, they might be like, oh, it's got to be super dialed in so that it can be coordinated with the lights, like the lighting team. It's got to be dialed in. But I want to have and train lighting people that can improvise with us and like know that, okay, the tempo's changing a little bit. Maybe we'll tempo map to what's going on. And certain dancers, some of it might be choreographed, some of it might be going in direct directions. So a lot of that could be improvised. So I'm on team improvise.
Thinking through kind of what you've been talking about as well with improvisation and things like that. Sam on the most recent school news, it was like earlier today, as when we're recording this, talked about the importance of fun and making things fun when you're building community. When you think about community and the music business in particular, How do you think about fun in that way? How do you make your community fun? And what does fun even mean for you? I would love to hear kind of more about what categorizes in there in the aspect of community and music business for you.
I think it's very important to make sure you're having a good time doing what you're doing, because then not only do you do a better job, but the people around you do a better job and are more attentive. And you mentioned Sam. I had some amazing conversations with Sam at the School Games Mastermind. It was really great to talk to him, and a lot of people were asking him questions about content and how to make certain things. Like, what's the proper way to make the things? And he had these amazing, simple answers to it too. It was just, well, what do you want to see? Like, what would you watch? Just make that. Like, well, what would be fun to you? Just make that happen.
The joy of simplicity.
Yeah, and it's just this great way of like, don't forget that you want to enjoy this at the end of the day, right? Which is really fun.
Mm.
Even within school today, also on school news, they're like demoing new features of like the school cat. It's like playing music and doing this fun stuff, and just having different ways of making it engaging throughout the way. So I also, one of my other big uh, things that I just love outside of music is comedy. So I think comedy is like such a great way. I think those are two of some of the most universal languages, right? Music and comedy.
Hmm.
So yeah, comedy is just a great way to, whether it's like in your community, maybe at the start of your community calls or like throughout the week, just trying to incorporate some humor, even out on the field, out at gigs, trying to keep that level of like, having a good time and comedy versus just like, oh, show up and oh, yeah, get in your place, do the thing. All right, yeah, yeah. We were being more like structured about it. So yeah, I think fun leads to everyone doing a better job. And that leads to the studio too. I mean, if you're an artist that's like loose and feeling good and you get them to laugh, like they're gonna give a really good take after that because they're feeling more comfortable and more ready to kind of give their best.
There's a scientific study that was done recently that like compares and contrasts all the ways to tackle depression. And one of the things that was actually, I think it was the number one resolver that made people feel the best in their, post exit surveys of the study was dance. Dance is
Dance.
actually the number one thing because, I'm sure there's 1,000 different reasons. I'm not a scientist, right? But moving your body, music, right? These things that are just like you said, these universal languages. So you don't dance when you're sad. Well, I mean, generally, right? I'm sure there's experiences where you would, right? But you'd have these kind of understandings of, oh, it's actually so a part of being human. It's so special. So yeah, I just thought that was really cool.
I
But
absolutely
I want to
absolutely love
go ahead.
dance. I mean, I definitely really want to incorporate dance as like a big part of like future shows. Even like having
Mm.
dancers be like a part of like the DJ show, and just to have them also be able to shape how the music is and go in, because then it encourages everyone else in the crowd to dance more. But yeah, I think it's huge. I'm a huge fan.
Amazing. And given the conversation of fun here, let's paint this very dramatic picture that you're being threatened by some otherworldly being and you're only allowed to do like one thing for your community, right? Like if I were to go ask your community, "Hey, Robbie only has the ability to do one thing. We have to cut everything else out. We can only do one thing that's the most valuable piece of this." When it comes to community building, what would you say they would say is the one thing that above all else they get the most value from being part of your community?
I'd say it's the being able to help with their creative problem solving and like all kinds of different things, just to almost a cop out catch all answer. But it's because they come to me with all these different problems, and they'll say really nice things like, "Oh, you're the man, you help us make this, blah, blah, blah." But that ability to, they come in with this thing that's really stopping them and holding them down, and they can kind of look to me as like the one that can help them get unstuck and just get back on the road.
The importance of the guide. Is that through one-on-one, group aspects? Like how do they achieve those things as part of your group?
Yeah, group or one on one. Group or one on one. Both of those.
And it all comes down to just being able to connect people together, right?
Exactly.
Beautiful. I'd love to just paint a picture of what the future of the performer's pathway and of what you are doing Looks like we were talking a little bit before the recording about the Ultimate World Tour and all these amazing things that you're working towards. How does Performers Pathway fit into that? And what do you see as kind of like this main growth lever that you're trying to tackle right now in the business? Like, what would you say you're really focused on?
By focusing on really having a prolific content output that can kind of showcase the different things that it takes to go from a local musician to a world touring performer, that's going to leave all kinds of breadcrumbs for the performers of tomorrow to know what they can do to get to the next level. Because we're so lucky in today's day and age to have all the technology and the insights and the connection that we do have through social media. There are way less gatekeepers than there were, 30, 40 years ago in the music industry. So by going out and being the guide and going out on that quest to achieve this, setting up things to be able to share music with more people, going to also kind of pave the pathway for other people and also be recruiting and interviewing other people that are above my level as well to kind of get them to share insights with people that are on the performers pathway. And yeah, just show different ways how you can take this performance, you can take this dream you have in your head and bring it to an audience that'll be really receptive to it. And they're waiting for you. So don't keep it to yourself.
Well said. Well said. All right, Robbie, last question for you. Let's say that you had a billboard on the 9A, right? Riverside Park South area. It's in Manhattan. Every musician who's out there who, wants to become an avid performing artist and make this a part of their business in their life, they're able to see this billboard. And this is your billboard. What would you want it to say?
Ooh. Keep instruments and live music.
There it
I
is.
feel like there's going to be a lot of AI music's going to be coming. People will be, DJing, spinning music that they may or may not have made with AI, but it's going to be important to show that humanity throughout. That was a deep question on the spot, so I don't know if that's the best answer, but it's the one I came up with on the spot.
Well, as far as going out and producing stuff, thank you for taking the time to answer it. And it's all about producing and like you said, giving that quantity, but also that quality. And that was definitely a quality answer. I think where we are at as a species with the age of AI and everything that's going on, I've been fortunate enough to go to all these like in-person events and talk to all these people. And sometimes it was like freezing cold or raining, or it was just not a great environment. And I would go up to all these people and just be like, why did you come here? What are you after? And without fail, I've asked almost 100 people at this point. Pretty much everybody says the same thing. They say, I'm looking for connection and I want to find my people. And what better business is there to be in than music and community in the age that we are approaching right now? Robbie, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with all these community builders what you're up to, what you're after, and how it's going for you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Appreciate the great questions.
My pleasure. So that's it, guys. I hope you got a ton of perspective and insight from co-founder of Performers Pathway, Robbie Sko, the legend himself. He gave us so much perspective and insights. I really loved this conversation with him. And if you had something that you learned, drop it in the comments below. I'd be super excited to engage and hear what all you guys are thinking about. And remember, if you found this conversation interesting, check out this video here where I talk to Georgia, the founder of Expecting Together. She talks about starting a 12-week cohort where she actually had 0% churn for in-person meetups with new and expecting parents in February in Chicago. Check it out. It's a good one. We'll see you next time.